Hello everyone, thank you guys for tuning into another video. In today's discussion, I guess I should say, I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm not going to really talk about much of the games that I expect to see or speculate what we'll see this year or whatever it may be. I'm really more focused on how Nintendo is going to handle this. Now, Nintendo typically, let's take it back from Nintendo's origins, or more so its console origins with the Famicom. Nintendo released the Famicom in Japan, and during the time in the States, the video game market had essentially crashed due to Atari just releasing a ton of games that just really weren't selling well. The market was flooded, it's oversaturated, no quality control, it was just a mess. So Nintendo came in with the NES, and they packaged it with something called Rob the Robot. So they didn't really want it to be kind of synonymous with games or have that stigma. They marketed it more as a toy, and they had a very soft launch, specifically in New York City. And it went really well. It went insanely well. And so from then on, we all know what happened with the NES. It was a major success. Then we had the SNES, the Super Famicom, that came out, which was an iteration of the NES, and that was another major success. Then we had the Nintendo 64, which was... Nintendo was kind of teetering at that time. To give you some insights, the SNES sold over 60 million units, hardware-wise. The Nintendo 64, definitely not as much. That, about half. I think a little over 30 million. And that's because they had competitors in the market. You had PlayStation, who came in swinging. You still had Sega, who was doing some stuff. They had the Saturn, and the Dreamcast was starting to become a thing. After the Nintendo 64, Nintendo released the GameCube. And the GameCube, believe it or not, was one of the more powerful consoles at the time. But it was Nintendo's one of their worst selling. It did even less than the Nintendo 64, selling 21 million units. The Xbox One, or the original Xbox, outsold it. PS2 outsold it, both of them by a landslide, and the Dreamcast, unfortunately, was Sega's last console. Now, after the GameCube, Nintendo kind of went back to the drawing board, and that is when we got a little more innovation from Nintendo. Not saying that they haven't already innovated at the time, but they started to innovate a lot more and kind of focus more on innovation rather than specs and this, that, and the fourth, graphics and all that jazz. They released the Wii. The Wii was a roaring success for Nintendo, their best selling home console, excluding obviously the Switch has surpassed that, but the Wii did very well. Very, very, very well for Nintendo. They had the DS, which did very well for them too. So innovation was the name of the game. After that, they had the Wii U. Wii U obviously did not do so well, but it was definitely very innovative in what it did. It was a console that you could essentially have your gamepad and still do a ton with the gamepad, and also play some games strictly on the gamepad. And of course, they continued on with their handheld department with the 3DS. And mind you, they always had their handheld department going in unison, whether it be the Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advance SP, DS, DS Lite, so on and so forth. So that's always been a thing that Nintendo's had that unison with. Now, obviously we all know the Wii U was a flop. Did terribly. It's Nintendo's worst selling home console, selling 13.57 million units. And hardware sold terribly, software sold very bad. Luckily they had the 3DS, and did half of what the DS did, but still it did pretty good, software and hardware wise. Now, 2017, we get the release of the Switch, and it is probably one of the most innovative things in gaming in a while. It is a really cool concept that you can play these console titles and then just take this portable dock or portable tablet out of a dock and play these games on the go. It was a smash success. Nintendo came out swinging with a stellar first-party lineup, and we all know what happened from there. The Switch is an incredible success. It could very well be the best-selling home console, surpassing PS2's 160 million units. But as I've talked about just previously, Nintendo's had a very rocky history with transitioning. Where we're at now with Nintendo is very new. They've just announced the Nintendo Switch 2. It is literally just a improved Switch. So some have been saying, well, where's the innovation? Because Nintendo is known for their innovation. What is the new gimmick? What is the new thing? It is yet to be determined what that is. Nintendo is holding I think it's specifically for the Switch 2, a Direct, that'd be in April. But my thing is, where are we going to go from here? Because yes, Nintendo has caught lightning in a bottle. They had their PlayStation moment, right? Nintendo with the Switch is really just Nintendo. While yes, the Switch in itself is a gimmick, we take a look at the software side of things. Software is selling incredibly well. And that's because it's Nintendo just doing Nintendo. They're making phenomenal first-party titles that are driving momentum and driving success. They're doing well third-party wise too, probably the best they ever had. And so what's next? In terms of innovation, I don't think we need to see a ton. I think what most people really want is just a better Switch that can run more current games in terms of third party, right? And I think we're definitely going to get that. Now, in my opinion, I love this because we have Nintendo at Nintendo's best. We are going to get likely more stellar first party releases. We are going to get third-party support like we have been getting on the Switch 1. So this is great. The only thing is, I think it's pretty safe to say that there will be no more dedicated handheld software or hardware. I think that I'm pretty sure Nintendo's already stated that the fact that these teams are now completely together and they're working together, it has helped them tremendously. So there is no more dedicated handheld team. It is just one team, not one team, but essentially it is just one focus, which is just this piece of hardware, which is a Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. So for me, this is interesting because now we see Nintendo at its best, and we're going to keep seeing Nintendo at its best. Yes, the Switch itself is a gimmick. What it does is a gimmick. I understand that, but they have captured that gimmick, right? Kind of what PlayStation did. PlayStation came in swinging with a home console that had great software, and they iterated upon that with the PlayStation 2, and they iterated upon that with the PS3, and they iterated upon that with the PlayStation 4, so on and so forth. Now Nintendo is at that, where, hey, we're going to sell you on Nintendo. We're going to sell you on our games. We're going to sell you on our brand. We're not going to sell you on motion controls. We're not going to sell you. Maybe some people are still buying the Switch because I think the portability factor is something. But I think at this point now, Nintendo has its audience. It's always had its core audience, but I think it has out-branched its core audience, and it's kind of become the de facto, I wouldn't say de facto, but it's definitely retained more of the market and saying, well, oh yeah, I'm getting the Switch. It's brought more. It hasn't necessarily carved out more market. I think it has carved and taken market share from existing competitors such as PlayStation and Microsoft and maybe the PC landscape too a little bit. Because really their first-party lineup's been stellar. We've got some of the best first-party games we've ever gotten from Nintendo on the Switch. They've also been doing a really good job at porting some of their great legacy titles onto the Switch. So I think this is really fun. It's great to see Nintendo at this spot. It's really going to be fun to follow the launch of the Switch 2 and see what software they're putting out and what they will do with the Switch 2 when it comes to hardware. What's going to be different, what's going to be new, what's going to be unique. Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to think about. It's really fun to talk about. I'm really interested to see what the future has in store for Nintendo, what they have planned. It's awesome just to see Nintendo have this hit and just say, okay, guys, let's just keep it going. Let's not do anything crazy. Let's not fix what's not broken. Let's just keep this going. Keep giving people what they want. Let's iterate upon it, make improvements, take feedback in, and still give them this awesome software with this awesome piece of hardware. Because I can definitely say the Switch is in my top 3 favorite consoles of all time. What it has done, what it continues to do, the software that's on it, it's just awesome. So it's fun. I'm so happy that Nintendo just said, hey, you know what? Let's keep this going. Let's just make improvements on it, and let's give people what they want, and let's keep getting this stellar first-party stuff. And that doesn't mean they can't necessarily innovate with software like Ring Fit Adventure, Labo. There's a ton of stuff that they can still do with software, and they probably will. But it's very fun to see, very fun to think about. I'm very excited to see what software they have in store, what more details about the hardware, price point, things like that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video.